Welcome back to another Tom Clancy's books in Jack Ryan universe storyline order video, this time with Rainbow Six. This book, I'm not going to be as kind to this one as I was to some others. And I know this one's a lot of people's favorites. There was a video game series about it, but I'm not going to be as kind to this one as I was to some others on his writing style. And I think this one also helps me prove the point of was he getting help or wasn't he? So remember, this book came out in 1998, and it was kind of set in the near future for then. So it was set in sort of 1991 through 2000 ish kind of space, maybe early 2001. And it's really John Clark focused. So they kind of wanted to go give John Clark his own story arc where they were trying to, I think he was trying to build this Rainbow series that was going to be on top of the Jack Ryan universe. And for some reason, it just never continued. It turned into a fantastic video game series that we all love, but it is what it is. So this one comes right after the events in Executive Orders and right before The Bear and the Dragon, which is up next on my reading list. So the book opens with John Clark and Domingo Chavez kind of hanging out with their families on the way to London um, to run to be on a new concept in dealing with terror groups called Rainbow. And Rainbow Six is John Clark's call sign. When they're on the plane, they're on there. They're both CIA agents. They're on the way to run an anti-terror team. There's a British SIS agent who's on the way to run the same team, and their plane is hijacked, which never ever happens anymore. But remember, this was pre 9/11, a little bit different, right? So it was a much different world. Cockpits weren't the same. Obviously, planes could be hijacked at least through 2001. Now, the safety and security, at least even the cockpit doors, are shockingly different than they were before, and a much different world. So, but two of the world's best operators in the right place at the right time, along with one of the best British operators ever. Remember, it's pre 9/11, but man, that's just lucky, right? You get those three guys on a plane when it's being hijacked, unless it was sort of part of a plan to be there and test them, or some foreign agency trying to test them, but nobody knew they were there, right? So it was just happenstance. Got lucky, so you see, or unlucky, depending on how you look at it. But imagine the bad luck of the terrorists on that one, right? Was it uncoincident? Was it intentional? It never came up that it was intentional in the book that I remember, but odd coincidence. Okay, okay, Mr. Clancy, you're pushing it, man. Rainbow is this paramilitary group that's part of one of the international intel organization. Remember, Jack Ryan is president. He came up through the intel's orgs, so he likes them. He loves them. He wants to use more of them. And hey, to each his own. Um, but it was designed to operate quickly and go into sort of some gray areas on how to stomp down terrorist activity in progress. So it's populated with some of the best operators in the USA and Britain and from some other places. Um, Great guys, right? Just the team amongst teams to do this kind of stuff. Um, and then we're kind of jump back into, hey, what else is going on in the world at this point? Well, someone in New York, as sort of the ultimate protagonist for the story. There's a group in New York who's pulling homeless people off the streets and using them for human experimentation. It gets real, it gets work done without the pesky paperwork or people coming after you for trying to figure out how to build chemical or biological weapons and got to experiment on people. Why not use winos off the streets, right? It can happen. That one, you actually, yeah, that could happen, but would it, who knows? Different world, right? Clark and Ding, Domingo goes by Ding, started the Rainbow Team's training, hard training team. They're anti-terror. These are Olympic level trained guys, right? They're as good as you come. And remember, this is 98, so pre 9/11. But Tom Clancy was basically kind of given a sales pitch, if you think about it, for using intel and military agencies to do this kind of work. At least it seemed that way. And I don't, it's sort of an obvious choice, right? If you've got a huge terror problem, local police probably not going to be able to do it. It seems like paramilitary groups are key. But was it a sales pitch? Who knows? But the book, I think, um, had a few challenges. We'll get back to that in a second, and whether or not we can say Clancy was getting help from this one. I think we can conclusively say something. I'll get to that at the end. But these guys assume they would have time to train and learn how to work as a team, get all the new team members in, work together. They were wrong. The world started going nuts pretty much as soon as they showed up and got on the job. And I'm going to pick on Clancy a little bit because when they get called into a bank robbery over in Geneva, they're near London. And wouldn't somebody else handle that? Wouldn't, like, police and locals handle that? These guys should really be there for bigger picture stuff, not, hey, there's a bank robbery. You guys from London, you should come in and handle it. We're over in Switzerland. And challenge with a team like that, handling SWAT team jobs is you got to get them there, right? And it makes it almost impossible to stay anonymous because of the news coverage. So, getting from London to Geneva in time, Clancy had this ultra secret anti-terror group load up their weapons and catch a flight that was a commercial flight, but the weapons caught the same commercial flight. But it's okay because the airline was in on the ultra secret group. A little weird. And these guys catching a commercial flight to go deal with that. Come on. Like the bank robbers are going to sit around waiting, going, "Oh, come on, we're waiting, Rainbow. What's taking so long? I know British Airways is always the fastest." Um, that's right. I love you, British Airways. I've never flown you, but I'm not picking on you. I'm just picking on Tom Clancy. And there's actually a story, the B story in this about sort of these genetic modifications, which goes back to a previous book that we just finished, where they were using sort of gain of function research to be the bad guy. And I guess you kind of go back to it, and that's it's just a foil for Rainbow Six anyway, so it's okay. But the book did spawn a video game series that the people do love, and but the book does suffer from like 200 pages of every time he tells me about John Clark or Domingo or some other character is, oh, these people are the best of the best of the best and the smartest of the smartest of the smartest. And they're going to college and they've got a master's degree. And that one wants to work on a PhD and he's got a bachelor's and a master's and his wife has, I get it. Everybody's smart, but I don't need to hear their entire curriculum vitae and understand the GPA they had when they were freshmen. So, is what it is. But let's get back to the terror team. The terrorists are never going to give a team like this the response time sufficient to catch a freaking commercial flight from England. I can't get over that. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, when I first read this book, I really liked it. And I did. It was years ago, but I really enjoyed it. And now that I go back on it and look at it with fresh eyes, I'm like, yeah, this has got problems. But yeah, the main enemy in this is trying to develop this drug that takes Ebola and weaponizes it and can wipe out large parts of the planet. And they want to uh, use that to save the planet. It's an environmental group. They want to like get rid of people because people are evil and we don't like them very much. Let's kill off all of them except the ones we choose. We'll get to pick who gets to stick around afterwards, just the ones that think like us. Otherwise, we're just going to do mass genocide. We're going to kill everybody who's not environmentalist, and that'll be that, right? Another thing Clancy did, Clancy was a guy who's known for his research. He was known for being technically accurate. And I got to put my physicist hat on here for a minute. Clancy did ride supercomputing just right off the rails. He declared quantum theory as offering a way to program supercomputers. That's not how you program even a quantum computer. That's how the quantum computer works. That's the hardware. It doesn't offer you an opportunity to program it that way. Quantum theory and programming are not the same. And it's possible that Clancy was, I get the feeling that Clancy wasn't necessarily getting all that much help anymore. And maybe he heard the word, quantum computing and went, oh, that must be how you program it. Well, who knew back then, unless you were into that kind of stuff? Because it was kind of at the outset of when that stuff started getting kicked around, maybe a little bit before then, but not long. But I think this book suffered a lot from Clancy's sort of later career. I don't need an editor or need to listen to anyone. And I also think that he, by and large, was getting help or getting whispered to about certain topics in his previous work. And I think in this one, he wasn't. I think in this one, he's like, you know what, guys, I don't need to listen to anybody. We're good. I got this. I'm Tom Clancy. I know what I'm doing. And I think the book is like almost an excellent book, but it just doesn't stand up to some of his previous work. So when it first came out, I loved it. I really did. But I was sort of on this Tom Clancy high, and now that I go back and look at it in reverse after having written some books of my own, and read, 1,000 more, I can see the flaws, and I can see the weaknesses in it, and I can see where people loved it, but I can also see where other people hated it. And there are aspects of this book I truly love because Tom Clancy, and there's aspects of this book I'm like, I don't care for this at all. So take the book for what you want. I think what it does is prove or help us understand that for a while Clancy was getting help from somebody somewhere, and eventually he wasn't. And this book kind of suffers for that. And also suffers from the fact that he probably wasn't listening to editors anymore because it needed it. It's a good book. I did. If you haven't read it, it is worth taking the time at least once. But it does have its challenges. You do have to suspend disbelief a lot. Like the rapid response anti-terror team is going to go hook up on British Airways and catch a flight. Not how it's going to work. They did eventually get their own aircraft, but it was a couple of times they got called out. It was like, let's go fly commercial, guys. Woo, yeah. I'm like, no, no, no. But yeah, it is Tom Clancy. So next up is Bear and the Dragon. I'm going to continue to go through this, even though this one did let me down a little bit upon a reread. And Bear and the Dragon is big. So that one may take me a while to get through because it is another long one. And it was very much towards the end of Tom Clancy writing by himself, towards the end of that part of his life. So look forward to seeing you on the next one. Love to hear what you think in the comments. Remember, I'm not commenting on the video game, just the book. And the video game I think is awesome. We can talk about that for hours if you want, but this is just a discussion of the book and how it helps us understand, was he getting help or was he not? We'll see everybody on the next one. Have a great day.